This is a follow-up video from the previous one on Christianity, my experiences in Christianity. Now, that cataclysmic event, I'll explain to you what happened. In my mind, I was so jaw-dropped of how stupid somebody could be, how deep they could go into that rabbit hole of spiritual and moral bankruptcy that we call forgiveness. How's that forgiveness attained? It's by giving it up, not even manning up to it. It's like giving it up. What do? We eat the flesh of a dead man hanging on a cross, and we drink the blood dripping from his toes. That's how it's done. Blood sacrifice. And I'm going to talk about this as I want. It's in wide open interpretation, so you can use it wherever you want. My sandwiches are the best because of Jesus Christ. I immediately was betrayed, not only because I trusted my mother. I was seeing illumination on this whole Christian mindset where it's okay to screw up and be forgiven the next week or anytime you want. That manifested root of anger and hate that my mother tried to instill in me had come to the surface. That root is now a tree. This tree, we're just going to call it a weed, was going to spread pretty fast. I immediately dropped everything. So I no longer had trust in her. I didn't have trust in myself. I didn't have trust to put in any deities for seeking. So I went months with just, I'm going to be blatant, block your ears if you want to hear it. I was like, fuck God and fuck religion. Just fuck it. I don't even care anymore, right? So, and that's how I felt. I knew there was something there, but I didn't want to give myself to anything. I didn't want to do nothing. So, there came a point where I experienced another piece of magic, and it brought a new warning to my life. I was at work, somebody had crossed me, and it was kind of a public humiliation or something. Really didn't bother me any more than an amount of pride. But it was a pretty deep hit, and I can't even remember what happened. So one of the co-workers knew me and knew about me, and he probably knew more than I did about myself. But basically at that time, I believed that there was power that was unidentifiable, and whatever I said would happen. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but this is, my interpretation of how I felt. So I felt like in command, but I was driven that time through fear, hate, and rage. It was very, very bad. Very, very powerful. You can call it demonic possession if you want. And I actually didn't even want to let it go because it was so good. So the mechanic, actually, he was a mechanic, walked up to me and he said, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I was like, I have no idea. I went home, I told my wife what happened, and she understood how angry I was, how much my pride was hurt. So she's like, well, what do you want to happen? I said, I want this kid to smash his car into a concrete wall. I don't want him to get hurt, but I want him to learn something. So he was off for the next 2 days, or was it the next day? At any rate, that exact thing happened. He had called in, I talked to him on the phone. He said, I'm on my way to work, but I just smashed my car into a concrete wall. He's like, no other cars are involved. I was like, okay. That was an eye-opener for me. I got a little scared at that point. After I had reported it to management, the technician had come up and said, did you do that? I told him I didn't want to talk about it. So I went home, told my wife, and she was not very happy. She's like, sit down, you need to change very quickly before this bites you in the ass. So at that time, well identified, I had verbal power, and people look for that. And then I started to look backwards on all the people that I hated with such a passion that I would just bleed. I hated people that I worked with that I never even talked to. I hated them just because of the way they looked. Or looked at me. Whatever. There was a kid, he was asset protection. I hated him so much. I just hated him. Hated him. He ended up in the hospital with a blood infection. It was horrible. And then I became almost best friends with him. Many other accounts where my wishes, commands, and everything had come to fruition. After I knew it was time for a change, The Secret had come on Netflix, and I watched it one day and I was jaw-dropped. I was like, everything they're explaining there is an explanation of what I just did, right? So my thoughts and my actions and my words went out to the universe and tore some shit up. I didn't benefit from it. It was just my will. So after that, I was like, oh man, let me use this secret. So I used The Secret. I explained this in some other videos. I used The Secret, I got a new job, 2 cars, blah, 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 more money, got all the happy stuff. And then we moved on into a whole nother streamline of events that are explained in other videos about my first experiences with Greek pantheon, Lucifer, all kinds of other stuff. So if you found this interesting, if it explains some things, if you have any questions, you want some clarity, leave a comment, send me a message. I'll answer it as soon as I can. So, but I appreciate your interest, and as always, continue on. Have a great night. Thank you. Bye-bye.